Om Namo Bhagavate Vāsadevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vāsadevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vāsadevaya. So, this is the Srimad Bhagavatam, translated by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, with his commentaries, his purports. And this is Canto 5, Chapter 18, Text 13. And we're reading about the residents of Jambudvip and how they worship the Lord. The different sectors of Jambudvip worship different, offer prayers and meditate and serve, have a serving attitude, devotional attitude toward the different incarnations. Each different sector is focused on the different incarnations. So this particular sector is for Lord Nrsingadev, and Prahlad Maharaj is offering beautiful prayers. This is not the child Prahlad. This is the when he's grown up and he's managing on behalf of the Lord. And so these are some of his prayers, and this is text 13. Just as aquatics always desire to remain in the vast mass of water, all conditioned living entities naturally desire to remain in the vast existence of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, if someone very great by material calculations fails to take shelter of the Supreme Lord, but instead becomes attached to material household life, his greatness is like that of a young, low-class couple. One who is too attached to material life loses all good qualities, good spiritual qualities. So nice illustration there. In the previous verse, Prahlad was saying that to become overly attached to the prison of family life and civic life, and that even if one performs their duties perfectly in those capacities, what good is it? They miss the opportunity to engage in devotional service to the Lord, which is their eternal occupation, eternal life. So here's a nice illustration. Aquatics, they always want to remain in the water. That's their natural environment, is the water. So similarly, because we're spirit, we're not matter, then we want to remain in the spiritual atmosphere because we are spirit. But when we become distracted and illusioned and develop a desire to try to enjoy engagement in material activities, that's when the problems start. And here he says that if they fail to such a person, if someone very great by material calculations fails to take shelter of the Supreme Lord, but instead becomes attached to material household life, his greatness is like that of a young low-class couple. So by material calculations, he's very great. Maybe he's in government, and everybody, he has some fame like that, or maybe he has a lot of wealth, or is an entertainer or an athlete or something. And by material calculations, he's really achieved something. But if he becomes attached to material household life, then he has no real greatness. It's just fleeting. So-called greatness is just, it's fleeting. And he's compared here to a young, low-class couple. So Low class means not much responsibility. The upper classes of society carry more responsibility. And Krishna gives them more responsibility. It's become very responsible in Krishna. They can be engaged by Krishna, by the Lord, for the benefit of everyone, for the welfare of everyone. But in the lower classes, they're more or less just living for themselves, pretty much, without carrying much responsibility. The only responsibility they have is just toward their own little family. They don't have much civic, they're not very civic-minded. And they lose their spiritual qualities because they're too attached to the expansions of their body and their bodily consciousness. This is my family, this is my... So in a low-class way, and they lose their spiritual qualities. So Prabhupada's commentary. Although crocodiles are very fierce animals, they're powerless when they venture out of the water onto land. When they're out of the water, they cannot exhibit their original power. Similarly, the all-pervading supersoul, Paramatma, is the source of all living entities, and all living entities are part and parcel of him. When the living entity remains in contact with the all-pervading Vāsadeva, the personality of Godhead, he manifests his spiritual power, exactly as a crocodile exhibits its strength in the water. In other words, the greatness of the living entity can be perceived when he's in the spiritual world, engaged in spiritual activities. Many householders, although well educated in knowledge of the Vedas, become attached to family life. They're compared to a crocodile who is out of the water. For the devoid of spiritual strength, the greatness is that of a young husband and a wife, though uneducated, praise one another and become attracted to their own temporary beauty. This kind of greatness is appreciated only by low-class men with no qualifications. Yeah, there's the illusion taking root. Prabhupada's comparing the strength of the crocodile. When he's in his element, when he's in the water, he has power. When he's on the land, he has no power. He's very awkward. If you've ever seen them walking on the land, they kind of lumber along and they have little short tiny legs. But when they're in the water, they swim fast, and they just streak through the water, and they have some power there. But so that the living entities were all part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, here referred to as Paramatma, who's situated within the heart of everyone. And when we're in connection with the Supreme Lord, then we have our spiritual powers. Where we have power, spiritual power, like the crocodile in the water. But when we divert our attention to engaging in material life, specifically here Prabhupada's referring to householders who may have knowledge of the Vedas. They may have Vedic knowledge. But in spite of that, they become too attached to their household situation. The husband too attached to the wife, and the wife too attached to the husband. And they simply are enamored of each other, and glorify each other, and try to enjoy each other's company. Then they lose that connection with the spiritual connection. And so that kind of greatness is attractive. I mean, when we look at the entertainment that's available for people, the cinema, the television, and the books, some of the novels and things that come out, they glorify that. That's glorified. That kind of very low-class temporary attraction to temporary phenomena. It's all temporary beauty of each other. It's glorified. And this is the illusion at work. Everyone should therefore seek the shelter of the Supreme Soul, the source of all living entities. No one should waste his time in the so-called happiness of materialistic household life. In the Vedic civilization, this type of crippled life is allowed only up until one's 50th year, when one must give up family life and enter either the order of Vanaprastha, independent retired life for cultivation of spiritual knowledge, or sannyas, the renounced order, in which one completely takes shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is one of the benefits, one of the many benefits of a society structured according to Vedic principles. And that such a society is guided by the Brahmins and managed by the Kshatriyas. And in such a society, everyone has good opportunity to make spiritual advancement and good opportunity to support themselves and their families. It's a very peaceful situation and very conducive for spiritual advancement. So Prabhupada calls this crippled life, where they're simply entangled with each other. And such a life is allowed, but only until the 50th year. Then either Vanaprastha, and Vanaprastha is available for all classes of society. Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and even Sudra can take Vanaprastha, where they go to the forest, or here it's described retired life for cultivation of spiritual knowledge. In the West, we also see that as people get older, the age limit in some countries is 65, but it's creeping up there, going up. People are being forced to work longer to maintain themselves. And they're offered the opportunity for retired life. They should use that opportunity for cultivation of spiritual knowledge. At the present, very few are using it for that. They're instead simply trying to enjoy continuously the material situation. But that's the idea of retirement, is retire from working hard so that you can cultivate spiritual knowledge, either by visiting holy places or using more time for reading and studying and chanting and meditating, for taking shelter of advanced devotees. And if one becomes a renounced order, which is really only available for, I believe, the Kshatriyas, definitely it's available for Brahmins, it might be available for Kshatriyas, I'm not sure about that. But it's not available for Vaishyas and Sudras. Vanaprastha is available. When they take to the renounced order, take complete shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they're in a good position to travel and preach and to serve the Lord by spreading the message of Godhead. So that's some of the benefits of our ashram system, Vedic structured society. Text 14. Therefore, O demons, give up the so-called happiness of family life. Simply take shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Nrsimhadev, which are the actual shelter of fearlessness. Entanglement in family life is the root cause of material attachment. Indefatigable desires, moroseness, anger, despair, fear, and the desire for false prestige, all of which result in the repetition of birth and death. So this is family life, entanglement in family life, not the family life of devotees where everyone is trying to engage in the service of the Lord to the best of their ability. This is another type of family life where Krishna really isn't the goal. The goal is to try to enjoy. And this is the fruits of that. It's the root cause of material attachment. Relentless desires, desires that are never satisfied, indefatigable. Fatigue means wearing out and getting tired and exhausted. This is indefatigable, never exhausted, never worn out, always pushing these desires. Family life. Want this, want that, need this, need that. Moroseness. Morose. It's like depressed, morose. When the desires are not satisfied, become morose. And also angry. Moroseness and anger are the results of desires that are not satisfied. And the desires cannot be satisfied because they're unlimited and they keep coming. Despair. Despair is like hopelessness. No way, cannot see any way out of the endless barrage of desires that are not satisfied, that make morose and angry, and then despair. And fear. Fear of what might happen. Fear of death, basically. And fear of losing whatever it is we think we have from our hard toiling labor. Fear of losing what we have. And fear of not getting what we want. Fearful. And the desire for false prestige. Yeah, that's really important, that false prestige, because that leads into material sense gratification. That's on a subtle level. False prestige is leads in on a subtle level, leads into gross sense gratification. Specifically, we hear it discussed in terms of sex. So the subtle form, or the false prestige, is some profit, some adoration, and some distinction. And that leads into engaging in sensual activity, specifically sex. I'm so profitable. I'm worshipable. And the way you're going to worship me is we're going to enjoy sex, like this. It's a perverted form of devotional service, which is pure. It has nothing to do with material sex life, but has everything to do with worshiping the worshipful object, Krishna. There's no false prestige in Krishna. There's real prestige. So it's just a twisted form which serves to entangle conditioned souls. Prabhupada has no commentary on that. In text 15, Sukadeva Goswami continued. All right, we're going to go to another. We're leaving Prahlad's tract of land. We're going to another tract of land. Sukadeva Goswami continues. He's describing these different tracts of land. Now we're going somewhere else. In the tract of land called Ketumalavarsa, Lord Vishnu lives in the form of Kamadev, only for the satisfaction of his devotees. These include Lakshmiji, the goddess of fortune, the Prajapati, Samvatsara, and all of Samvatsara's sons and daughters. The daughters of Prajapati are considered the controlling deities of the nights, and his sons are considered the controllers of the days. The Prajapati's offspring number 36,000, one for each day and each night in the lifetime of a human being. At the end of each year, the Prajapati's daughters become very agitated upon seeing the extremely effulgent disk of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus they all suffer miscarriages. Hearing these descriptions, it's like being a frog in a well. When we look out through our material eyes and we see around us, we tend to think everything is like what we see right now. But just think about it. Everything's not exactly like what we see right now. Like, I'm in a sort of a tropical climate, Krishna's mercy, and I look out, it's very flat, it's morning time, and I see certain types of plants and different landscapes, kind of flat, okay? But it's not like everything is like that. I know, I used to live in Tennessee. It's hilly there. There's lots of hills. And the vegetation and the landscape's completely different. And the creatures that live there are different. They don't have these lizards everywhere in Tennessee, and there aren't, peacocks walking around. It's different. There's groundhogs. And little mountain lions. Mountain lion isn't like a real big lion. It's like a big cat. It's a feral cat. It's a wild cat. Bobcat, I'm sorry, not a mountain lion, a bobcat. It's big, bigger than a regular household cat, but it's a cat. And they like that. And right now it's morning here, but you can go somewhere else, it's like, I think if you go to India, it's nighttime. 10 o'clock in the morning here. If you go to Mayapur, it's like 10 o'clock at night. It's dark. So even on this planet, everything isn't exactly like when I look out what I see. So when we hear about these descriptions of these different parts of the universe, the way we know about them is by hearing about them from authorized sources. And this Bhagavatam is an authorized source. And we're getting a description here of Ketumala Varsa. And it's very different from what we're experiencing right now here on this Earth planet. Bhāgavata Varsa. This is Ketumala Varsa. We're on Bhāgavata Varsa. So, Prabhupada's commentary. This Kamadev, who appears as Krishna's son named Pradyumna, is Vishnu Tattva. How this is so is explained by Madhvacharya, who quotes from Bhāgavata Purāṇa. Although this Kamadev is Vishnu Tattva, his body is not spiritual but material. Lord Vishnu, as Pradyumna or Kamadev, accepts a material body, but he still acts spiritually. It does not make any difference whether he accepts a spiritual or material body. He can act spiritually in any condition of existence. Mayavadi philosophers regard even Lord Krishna's body as material, but their opinions cannot impede the spiritual activity of the Lord. Okay, a little more insight into how things work spiritually. So, Pradyumna is the son of Krishna, but in this case, he's appearing in a tract of land called Ketumala Varsa. He's living there as Kamadev. In purport, Prabhupada says that, and Madhvacharya also explains that this Kamadev is not exactly the same Kamadev from in Vaikuntha, that he has come to another level and he's taken on a material form. but he can act spiritually within that form. So, it's a type of incarnation. I'm going to read the verse again because it's really an unusual place. This is what happens in this tract of land where Kamadeva is incarnated. It says, only for the satisfaction of his devotees. It's the only reason he's there, is to satisfy his devotees. And some of these devotees are Lakshmiji, the goddess of fortune, and the Prajapati Samvatsara, and all of Samvatsara's sons and daughters. Now those sons and daughters of Prajapati, these are demigods, are the controlling deities of nights. His daughters control the nights and his sons control the days. Because the demigods control everything on behalf of the Lord. So these are the controlling deities of the days and nights of the living entity. And there are 36,000, one for each day and night in the lifetime of a human being. At the end of each year, the daughters become very agitated because they're controlling the night upon seeing the extremely effulgent disk of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they suffer miscarriages. So, Hare Krishna. Text 16. In Ketumalavarsa, Lord Kamadev Pradyumna moves very graciously. His mild smile is very beautiful, and when he increases the beauty of his face by slightly raising his eyebrows and glancing playfully, he pleases the goddess of fortune, and thus he enjoys his transcendental senses. And there's no purport there. There's a little bit more about Kamadev. This is text 17. Accompanied during the daytime by the sons of the Prajapati, the predominating deities of the days, and accompanied at night by his daughters, the deities of the nights, Lakshmiji worships the Lord during the period known as Samvatsara, in his most merciful form as Kamadev. Fully absorbed in devotional service, she chants the following mantras. Okay, so the next few verses, we're going to hear those prayers that Lakshmiji sings to the Lord in his form as Kamadev. Here's Prabhupada's commentary. The word Mayamayam used in this verse should not be understood according to the interpretations of the Mayavadis. Maya means affection as well as illusion. When a mother deals with her child affectionately, she's called Maya Maya. In whatever form the Supreme Lord Vishnu appears, he's always affectionate toward his devotees. Yeah, that's because Maya, we always think of it, in Maya, illusion. But actually, it also, Sanskrit words, they have lots of meanings. One word can have lots of meanings in how it's used and how it's meant to be used. So we're accustomed to think, Maya, that's illusion. It's a bad thing. But actually, Prabhupada's explaining here another way to understand what's being expressed by the word Maya is also affection. So affection isn't bad, it's just when it's misplaced. So there's Yoga Maya and Mahamaya. I always wondered about that. If Maya is a bad thing, Maya is illusion, then how can Yoga Maya be a good thing? But that it really means affection. So affection for matter is Mahamaya, and that is not a good idea. And affection for Krishna is Yogamaya. So that is a good idea. And Yogamaya, affection for Krishna, if the devotee has that affection as being a parent of Krishna or a lover of Krishna or a friend of Krishna, then it is illusion in the sense that who can be the parent of Krishna? Krishna is the source of everything. How can you be a parent? How can you be his father or mother? He's the source of everything. He's the source of that parent. So in that sense, it is illusion, but it's good illusion because it enhances loving relationship with the Lord, which the Lord enjoys. That's what the Lord wants. He wants someone to act like his parent. He enjoys that. That's his pleasure. So that helps a lot. Personally, I'm really glad I read that about Maya. That the deeper meaning to Maya is affection. That's a deeper meaning than illusion. Illusion has a lot of negative connotations to it. And when it's understood that it's not just illusion, but it's affection, then that really helps. That really helps a lot. Yeah. Yoga Maya, Mahamaya. Very nice. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Whew. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Okay. So when a mother deals with her child affectionately, she's called Maya Maya. In whatever form the Supreme Lord appears, he's always affectionate toward his devotees. Thus, the word Maya Mayam is used here to mean very affectionate toward the devotees. Srila Jiva Goswami writes in this regard that Maya Mayam can also mean Kripa Pracharam, deeply merciful. Similarly, Srila Viraraghava says, there's a lot of Sanskrit there, we're just going to go for the translation. When one is very affectionate due to an intimate relationship, one is described as Maya Maya. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains Mayam Mayam by dividing it into the words Maya and Amayam. He explains these words to indicate that because the living entity is covered by the disease of illusion, the Lord is always eager to deliver his devotee from the clutches of Maya and cure him of the disease caused by the illusory energy. Yeah, to be freed from the affection for material energy. And the way to be freed from the affection for the material energy is not to destroy the affection, but to have the affection directed toward that which is worthy of having affection for, to that object, you can call Krishna an object, that can reciprocate properly or nicely, eternally, blissfully, fully, without interruption, all the time. That object of affection. So not to get rid of the affection, which is the Mayavadi's position, is that all affection is illusion. But no, affection isn't illusion. Desire isn't illusion. It's just when it's misdirected toward the temporary material energy. Then it's then the affection is disastrous. Become entangled in the material illusion. Devotee wants to become entangled in illusion. They want to become entangled in spiritual illusion of their loving relationship with the Lord. And the Lord wants that also. That's a good illusion. That illusion is actually the truth. When is illusion the truth? When the Lord is the one who is directly, personally maintaining that illusion out of love. So we want that. As I say, blinded by love. We want to be blinded by love. We want to fall into that. What is it? When they fall in love, say, oh, they fell into love. We want to fall into love with the Lord. We want that. That's the goal. That's the goal of it all. So, that's real knowledge. That's the goal of all knowledge. Is to fall into that illusion. Well, you know, mathematics in the spiritual world is 1 + 1 = 1. 1 - 1 = 1. Evidently, there's no zeros in the spiritual mathematics. So similarly, illusion is the highest truth. Yogamaya. Isn't that something? The illusion of love. That somehow the Lord is my child. Mother Yasoda. She's an illusion. She's an illusion. And it's the highest truth. Because illusion, in relationship to the Lord, it means affection. It's flipped. It's like, spiritually, illusion in relationship to the Lord is related to love of God. And when you flip that, it's a perverted reflection through his material energy. Attraction or affection for material energy leads away from love of God. It's flipped. Yeah. Text 18. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Rishikesh, the controller of all my senses and the origin of everything. As the Supreme Master of all bodily, mental, and intellectual activities, he is the only enjoyer of their results. So this is Lakshmiji, her prayers, her mantras. The 5 sense objects and 11 senses, including the mind, are his partial manifestations. He supplies all the necessities of life, which are his energy and non-different from him. And he's the cause of everyone's bodily and mental prowess, which is also non-different from him. Indeed, he's the husband and provider of necessities for all living entities. The purpose of all the Vedas is to worship him. Therefore, let us all offer him our respectful obeisances. May he always be favorable toward us in this life and the next. So Lakshmiji, she first addresses the Lord as Lord Rishikesh. Now, he's appearing here incarnated as Kamadeva or Pradumna, which is the most beautiful form of the Lord, like Cupid, even more than Cupid. And she's addressing him as Lord Rishikesh, the controller of all my senses and the origin of everything. A totally surrendered position. Not at all identifying with the material body. Bodily and mental prowess. Which is non-different from him. Because everything is his energy. Everything is expanded from the Lord. Everything and everyone, even us. Jiva souls. We're expanded from Krishna. We are Krishna's energy. And one form of it is marginal energy. That's who we are. And this is Prabhupada's commentary. In this verse, the word Maya is further explained in regard to how the Lord expands His mercy in different ways. Parasya Shaktir Vividhaya Shruyate. The energies of the Supreme Lord are understood in different ways. In this verse, He is described as the original source of everything, even our body, senses, mind, activities, prowess, bodily strength, mental strength, determination for securing the necessities of life. Indeed, the Lord's energies can be perceived in everything, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, Rasoham Apsukanteya. The taste of water is also Krishna. Krishna is the active principle of everything we need for our maintenance. Now this verse, offering respectful obeisances unto the Lord, was composed by Rama, the goddess of fortune, and is full of spiritual power. Under the guidance of a spiritual master, everyone should chant this mantra and thus become a complete and perfect devotee of the Lord. One may chant this mantra for complete liberation from material bondage, and after liberation, one may continue to chant it while worshipping the Supreme Lord in Vaikuntha Loka. Now this is Prabhupada giving this instruction, that to chant this mantra is very, very beneficial for devotees, aspiring devotees. Very, very beneficial. And even after liberation, become a complete and perfect devotee of the Lord. Get complete liberation from material bondage. So complete liberation really means devotional service. So chanting this mantra is quite acceptable as devotional service. And Prabhupada continues, all mantras, of course, are meant for this life and the next life, as Krishna himself confirms in Bhagavad Gita. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha jadhavrata namasyantascha mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, the great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. A devotee who both in this life and the next chants the Maha Mantra, or any mantra, is called Nitya Yuktopashaka. So that's what the devotees are doing, not only in this life, but in the spiritual world. They're chanting the glories of the Lord. They're bowing down with great determination, engaging in devotional service. That's what they're doing. So, the mantra itself is not in verse. I'm looking here at the Sanskrit. It's in prose. And I'm not going to do it without practicing it. It's 2.5 long lines of prose. But I am going to read the verse again in English. So this is Lakshmiji, Srimati Rama, Sri Rama. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Rishikesh, the controller of all my senses and the origin of everything. As the Supreme Master of all bodily, mental, and intellectual activities, He is the only enjoyer of their results. The 5 sense objects and 11 senses, including the mind, are His partial manifestations. He supplies all the necessities of life, which are His energy, and thus non-different from Him. And He's the cause of everyone's bodily and mental prowess, which is also non-different from Him. Indeed, He's the husband and provider of necessities for all living entities. The purpose of all the Vedas is to worship him. Therefore, let us all offer him our respectful obeisances. May he always be favorable towards us in this life and the next. Jai. So that's the goddess of fortune, her personal prayer. And it looks like it continues here. Her prayers continue. This is text 19. My dear Lord, you are certainly the fully independent master of all the senses. Therefore, all women who worship you by strictly observing vows because they wish to acquire a husband to satisfy their senses are certainly under illusion. They do not know that such a husband cannot actually give protection to them or their children, nor can he protect their wealth or duration of life, for he himself is dependent on time, fruit of results, and the modes of nature, which are all subordinate to you. So, Rukmini, also one of Krishna's chief queens, prayed a similar prayer, that woman who thinks that the husband with mustaches and hairs and skin and bones is actually her husband is really an illusion. Because it's Krishna supplying everything to everyone. And the so-called husband is also dependent on Krishna. So here, the goddess Lakshmi is being specific about this. Prabhupada's commentary. In this verse, Lakshmi Devi, Rama, shows compassion toward women who worship the Lord for the benediction of possessing a good husband. Although such women desire to be happy with children, wealth, long duration of life, and everything dear to them, they cannot possibly do so. In the material world, a so-called husband is dependent on the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are many examples of a woman whose husband, being dependent on the result of his own fruitive actions, cannot maintain his wife, her children, her wealth, or her duration of life. Therefore, factually, the only real husband of all women is Krishna, the Supreme Husband. Because the gopis were liberated souls, they understood this fact. Therefore, they rejected their material husbands and accepted Krishna as their real husband. Krishna is the real husband not only of the gopis, but of every living entity. Everyone should perfectly understand that Krishna is the real husband of all living entities, who are described in the Bhagavad Gita as Prakriti, female, not Purusha, male. In Bhagavad Gita, only Krishna is addressed as Purusha. Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavan, Purusham Shashvatam Divyam, Adi Devam Ajam Vibhum. You are the Supreme Brahman, the ultimate, supreme abode and purifier, the absolute truth, the eternal divine person. You are the primal God, transcendental and original. You are the unborn and all-pervading beauty. So, in relationship to Krishna, everyone is Prakriti, female, because everyone's dependent on Krishna. Krishna is the original Purusha, and the living entities are Prakriti. Thus, Krishna is the enjoyer, and all living entities are meant to be enjoyed by him. Therefore, any woman who seeks a material husband for her protection, or any man who desires to become the husband of a woman, is under illusion. To become a husband means to maintain a wife and children nicely by supplying wealth and security. However, a material husband cannot possibly do this, for he's dependent on his karma. karmana davanaitrena. His circumstances are determined by his past fruitive activities. Therefore, if one proudly thinks he can protect his wife, he's under illusion. Krishna is the only husband, and therefore the relationship between a husband and wife in this material world cannot be absolute. Because we have the desire to marry Krishna, Krishna mercifully allows us, the so-called husband, to possess a wife. I didn't read that right. Because we have the desire to marry, Krishna mercifully allows the so-called husband to possess a wife, and the wife to possess a so-called husband for mutual satisfaction. In the Ishopanishad it is said, Tena taktena bunjitaha. The Lord provides everyone with his quota. Actually, however, every living entity is Prakriti, or female, and Krishna is the only husband. Krishna is the original master or husband of everyone, and all other living entities, having taken the form of so-called husbands or wives, are dancing according to his desire. A so-called husband may unite with his wife for sense gratification, but his senses are conducted by Rishikesh, the master of the senses, who is therefore the actual husband. Yeah, I was remembering hearing how a disciple was asking Prabhupada one time what he should do, that he was feeling some sex desire and he wanted a companion, he wanted a wife. And Prabhupada was sitting by the window and he pulled the curtain back a little bit. It was a busy street, people walking below. And he said, "Oh, you want a wife? Well, pick one." There's women walking by. He says, "Pick one." Couldn't pick one. But just remember, love is for Krishna. So these desires are there, and there's provision in Vedic culture that if someone, most people, will want that relationship. And so it's there. Go ahead. It's not a problem. But just remember, love is for Krishna. And do your duty nicely and help each other and produce a family. You can be affectionate toward each other, is natural. But the actual love is for Krishna. And Krishna is controlling the senses of the husband and the wife and the children. And everyone has their karma, which as they surrender more and more to Krishna, they become relieved from those karmic reactions. So, like that. But household life, family life is very difficult. It's very difficult. It has to be maintained with working hard, and some of the family members may not be so favorable toward Krishna. They may be a little inimical, we don't know. Or some of the family members may be very great souls, who are very happy to take birth in the family of devotees. But the main thing is not to be overly attached on the bodily level to each other, but everyone attached to Krishna. And basically it's a concession for sense gratification, but as Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, what does repression accomplish? The yogis, they repress their senses and then they fall down. So better to engage the senses in acts of devotion in relationship to Krishna, become purified of the desire for sense gratification altogether. And so then there are the stages in the Vedic civilization, Vedic culture, that family life is, we were just reading, is only allowed up to the 50th year, and then retired life, where husband and wife together become devotional, more devotional in their practice, to disentangle themselves from the misconceptions and their attachments and become more attached to Krishna. And prepare, because they're going to be evicted out of the situation. They can't stay. So up to 50 years, kind of arrangement is there, and then it has to be wound down. If we're going to make spiritual advancement, it has to be wound down. So Lakshmiji here, she directly, she's the eternal companion of the Lord. She's explaining how the illusion works. And it's, I think we'll stop there for today and give us something to think about during the day. Hare Krishna.